Hi, I want to talk about the basics of the flipped classroom today. My name is Tara Becker-Utess. I am an academic consultant at the Ingham ISD. My email and my Twitter handle and my blog are all below. And before coming to the Ingham ISD, I was a high school math and social studies teacher at Charlotte High School, where I flipped my AP government class and then helped the math department flip algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. So this is just going to give you a brief overview of the flipped classroom, meant for people who are new to it and are just kind of trying to figure out what it entails. So I'll ask you just to think about a couple things here. And the main question I want you to think about is what is your best use of your in-class time? Where do you feel like you get the most bang for your buck in those 50, 60, 70, maybe you're real lucky, have 90 minutes with your students? My guess is, and again, obviously we're in a session, we would have this discussion, but my guess is that a lot of you thought, hey, the best use of time is when kids are actively involved. And so things like small group discussions or activities or simulations, things like that, or kids actively engaged in the content. But I know this as much as you as a classroom teacher, that we often have to sacrifice those really meaningful, beneficial things because we run out of time. We have snow days, or we have state testing, or we have school assemblies, and we just simply run out of time for those really good, deep learning opportunities. Now, obviously, you've heard of the Common Core, and I think everyone knows the Common Core, whether you like it or not, is all about deeper learning. They want less standards covered with a emphasis on going deeper into each standard. And of course, Michigan was somewhat on a track to do a Smarter Balanced assessment, which had some pretty deep questions. We need to think about what really should be the focus of our time. And that's where the flipped classroom kind of comes from, is this idea of what do we really need to be doing in class with students. So if you haven't heard of the flipped class at all, basically the idea is that rather than the teacher lecturing during class and then telling kids to go home and do the activities or do the problems at home on their own, it's flipped, exactly what it sounds like, where the kids watch the lecture at home. They do the easy part at home, which is just, gaining the basic level of knowledge that's needed. Then they come back into class the next day and actually participate in the engaging piece and the hard piece, the part that involves critical thinking and synthesis, the things that are high up in blooms. So, it really did flip kind of how we think of a traditional classroom. Now, I'm not going to show you this video, but if you click on this link right here, and you'll have to actually, let me go back here. You'll have to go to this URL if you want to be able to open the links. But if you open that, it's a really nice short video that CBS did on the flipped classroom that kind of shows you what a classroom might look like that is flipped. Now, notice I haven't said anything about a video yet. A lot of people think, oh, flipped, it's about video and kids making videos. It's not. The flipped classroom can be anything you want it to be. So my algebra flipped classes and my AP Gov flipped classes looked incredibly different, even though they were both flipped learning. The 4 pillars as defined by the 2 founders of the flipped classroom, and if you click on this link right here, it will take you to the Flipped Learning Network, which is a phenomenal resource for everything flipped learning. But they talk about the importance of a flexible environment, and not only physically, like your desks can be moved, you might have kids in big groups, small groups, individual, all in one block, but also in terms of student learning timelines, that kids learn at their own pace, and so it might take some kids longer to watch videos, or some kids might not do every activity each day. You might push students that are really catching on to do different things than other students. So really flexible environment. And my favorite one, I think, is this learning culture. And it's really different. Rather than the teacher being the expert, the teacher being the center of what's going on in the classroom, it's the learner. Students are actively involved in their learning, and they're the ones watching the videos and coming to class with questions to for the teacher to answer. And we talked about this one, this idea of, you as a teacher have to decide what belongs in class versus what belongs at home. This doesn't mean lecture is going to go away. If you know that there's content that students really, really, really struggle with, and making a video for them to watch at home just isn't going to cut it, you might lecture on that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But just really being intentional about what should be in the classroom and what should be at home. And of course, continuing to be a professional educator. Just because you're not upfront lecturing doesn't mean, you get to kick back at your desk. You are walking around, you're observing students. When students are struggling, you can provide them that feedback right away. You're talking to every student every day. I think that's my favorite thing about the flipped class. And you're going to find that the relationships you build are far and above what you ever built before. So let's get into kind of the nuts and bolts here of the flipped classroom, things that you might need. An LMS, if you haven't heard of that, is a learning management system. It's a way to organize yourself in the blended environment. So it's something that houses your instructional materials, quizzes, pacing guides, videos, whatever you need. And some ways to do that. I personally enjoy Edmodo, and if you click on that link, you can see an example of what Edmodo looks like. Google, of course, has come out with Google Classroom if you're a Google Apps for Education school. Some people, they hate that kids cannot remember their passwords, and so they have a blog. And my colleague Tyler Bartolacci does a phenomenal job with his geometry class. And it's all right on the blog. His videos are there every day. There's a new post so kids know exactly what they're going to be doing that day and what's for homework. And parents can get on the blog. There's no password needed. Moodle is another great one if your school provides access to Moodle, a nice way to organize. And Schoology is great as well. And what's even better about Schoology is that it links with a lot of test generators. So it's easy to upload tests for kids to take right online. Now, what you may need for the direct instruction. Obviously, it does not have to be a video, but if you are so inclined to create the video, which I was, if you're an iPad district, Show Me, Educreations are two phenomenal, very easy ways to create and share videos. If your kids all have iPads, you're going to want them to download a video called Roadshow, or an app called Roadshow. Allows them to save videos to their iPad to watch without Wi-Fi. And if you're like, I don't have time to make these videos, then don't make them yourself. Look at YouTube and see what videos have already been done. What's great about Edpuzzle is you can take videos from YouTube, from Khan Academy, and actually edit them. So you can cut out things you don't want. You can add quizzes to them. Now, if you want to get really fancy, Snagit, Camtasia, and Jing, I'm using Snagit right now, allow you to take PowerPoints that you have and essentially narrate over them. Camtasia allows you to get into a lot more of the editing feature. Screencast-O-Matic, obviously another great free screencasting software. Other teachers have done podcasts where kids just listen and there isn't anything obviously that they see, or it might be something where you assign them reading to do at night. So there's lots of different ways that you can give that direct instruction outside of class. Now, the first day in a flipped classroom, you really have to set the tone right away that it's going to be student-centered, because especially if you're a high school teacher, this is very, very different from what most of your students have experienced throughout their school years. So I actually created a video syllabus for my students and parents, just so right away parents could see what are the videos going to be like, and what is the class going to look like, and they get a little different perspective rather than just bringing home paper and pencil syllabus. So we actually watch the video syllabus in class, and I model, hey, you can pause the video, you can rewind the video. We model right in class what it looks like to watch a video. In my algebra class, we even watch the first content video in class. I don't give them homework the first night, and we watch that first video in class with them. Then your videos, keep in mind, a good kind of thing to think about is how old your students are. That should be the maximum the length of their video. Keep it short, and if you can't, chunk it. Do 2 5-minute videos. That's a lot easier for kids to kind of swallow than a giant, 20-minute video. So Then right away, provide an authentic task for them. Make it learner-centered right away. And what that does for you, it gives you an opportunity to, again, model. What are you looking for with group work? How are you looking for kids to question each other and to be critical thinkers? Because it is hard. They're not going to want to go deep into discussion right away. And if you click on a couple of links that are on here, you can see some examples of things that I've used. But you have to really model that for kids. Otherwise, they're just going to get a basic answer and kind of move on. And again, the first night, if you do have one-to-one devices, make sure kids have the homework downloaded. What is that video they're going to watch? So then here's the big part. I unfortunately the first summer spent all my time making my videos and didn't think, okay, you're gonna have 70 minutes a day to, do what with? So I had to kind of come up with a way to structure my flipped class. Now in AP Gov, it was a very traditional flipped class. Everyone was on the same pace. And so I was able to cover one standard every day. So the kids would come in, they'd see the standard up on the board. They would have already done the video, and if you want to see a sample of my video, you can click right here. Ideally, they would have then done the reading as well, or one or the other, completed their study guide. Then the first 10 to 15 minutes is Q&A time for them in their small groups. They were in groups of 4, and I would put up, here are the key words you probably saw last night, here are the key concepts you need to know, and they would talk with each other about those key concepts while I went around and saw what the main questions were. And then if I noticed every group had the same question, all right, I knew I needed to reteach that in class. And then we got into the simulations, and obviously in AP Gov, those are a lot of fun. So kids got to do, judicial selection simulation you see here, mock Congress. Some days when a current event, would come up, we would discuss how that current event related to what we were talking about. And then again, trying to do something at the end, a wrap up, whether it be a discussion on today's meet, an exit ticket on Socrative, a formative quiz, something to just kind of wrap up and get a feel for where your students are at. If this works really well, I think in math and maybe science, where you don't need as much of the conversation, collaborative conversation, is this idea of flipped mastery, and that's the idea that students are working at their own pace. So what we did with algebra is we tested this out, and students took a pretest to see where they were at, and then basically they worked through the standards that they got below a 3.5 or 4 on. They worked through those standards at their own pace, and the videos were all available on Edmodo. There were problem sets that they were required to do. And then the teacher, peer, if you're lucky enough to have a math coach or a special ed co-teacher in your classroom, we're all just walked through the class every day answering questions. And obviously these problem sets, that is where you might start involving, some of those deeper thinking problems once kids get the basics handled. Then they took their summative assessment when they were ready. Now, are there issues with this? Absolutely. Those who work quickly, they're going to be done before everyone else. But that's where you find those extension opportunities for them, and there's a lot that are out there. Those that are behind, if you're in a school that has intervention labs, obviously that's where they go. If not, that could be something that you focus on the power standards. What are the key things that those kids really need to know? Another model, and again, I try to do this a little bit in my AP Gov class, and this is the idea that before kids go home to watch the video, students are presented with some sort of problem or question or primary source document, and they work to kind of explore the problem. And so there's a little bit of that motivating factor that, okay, here I'm presenting the problem to you. Now, when you go home and watch this video, the video is going to focus on ways to solve that problem. And then they apply the next day right in class. So similar to the traditional, but I like that explore piece. Now, like I said before, the biggest issue you're going to run into is this idea of, okay, what am I going to do in class? And, that was really hard for me to figure out what I could do to really fill that time with meaningful activities. So a couple I came up with, student-produced videos. Have kids create videos themselves. And I think that's great for a review session. If you've heard of the EdCamp movement, we did review sessions that way where kids determine what standards do I really need to focus on before the test tomorrow. And they went to specific tables to work on those sessions with other students. There's real life video problems. So you know, videotape yourself pondering a real life problem, and I've linked to some examples there. Using today's Meet or Go Soapbox for discussions to have students, you know, report back. Refund. I found that I had so much time to do review because, you know, we might get done 10 minutes early, and I could then have slides that reviewed previous units, vocab and key questions. Error revision in math, show students a problem that they, you know, that's done wrong, and then they have to come up with how it is correct. Debates. Genius Hour. If you haven't heard of Genius Hour, it basically gives students the freedom for however long you give them to choose something they want to learn more about, and then they have time to just simply learn more about that or create something. Now, I'm not going to go into this too much, but, you know, my students fought me at first. My AP Cov students were just, you know, they'd be like, just tell us what we need to know, you know, and we worked through that, and we found ways that could kind of to evolve the flipped class to how it would work for them. But you can click on that link and just kind of see what some of their thoughts were. In Algebra 1A, we asked students, we did 9 weeks of a traditional flip, 9 weeks of flip mastery, and we did an analysis of the grades, and we asked students what they thought. And overwhelmingly, they really enjoyed the flip mastery, and actually, interesting enough, felt they had less homework in the flip mastery. Now, this is, I know, a quick overview, but here's places to look for more help. If you're on Twitter, every Monday night, the flipped class people meet. And it's you just search for hashtag flip class, and they're there at 8 o'clock. But if it's not Monday night, 8 o'clock, and you have a question, if you post your question on Twitter to hashtag flip class, you're going to get an answer. Find someone to partner with. You know, if there's someone else in your school or someone else in your state that you could make videos with or talk about, you know, how to make your classroom better, find that. Couple books that are great that I would recommend downloading and not super expensive, especially if you get them to electronically. And people are really willing to share. So, I mean, obviously you can look through my blog, which is posted on the first page of this. Crystal Kirsch does a great how she uses her flip math classes in English, social studies, science, and then of course the Flip Learning Network as well. So there's resources out there. Please don't feel like you're alone. If you have any questions, please do let me know. And I'll go back to the very first slide. My email's on there, my Twitter's handle's on there, so please do let me know if you have any questions at all.